Yes.
Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
All right, I'm pulling double duty here. Let me get my... All right. As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you. Next will be the Pledge of Allegiance led by Brandy Roulette.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, the October 12th, 2020 board meeting minutes. Need a motion to approve that or disapprove it.
Make a motion to approve. I'll second that motion.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes. Item number 5, Mr. Talameo.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to celebrate something fun. We actually won 2 American Institute of Architects awards, one for the Freshman Academy and one for Rosewood Elementary School. They were the People Choice Awards, which is actually voted for. Anybody who wants can get on and vote for whatever project they would like. And our community definitely backed us, and we won both of the awards in both categories. The Freshman Academy won the People's Choice Award for Medium Commercial Architecture, and we have Mr. Jeff Thomas with Seltzer Schaefer here to present that to us. And Rosewood won the AIA People's Choice Award for Large Commercial Architectural Project, and we have Nicole Shea and Eric King with GH2 Architects to present those to us.
Yay!
I just want to say thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for,
Thank you.
for I tell you what,
You want to do
for,
a picture? Sure. Yeah. All right.
that is definitely a testament to you guys. I mean, I tell you what, I love some of the school, I mean, the designs, the things that
Yep.
go on the out. I mean, it's so important, not just the outside of the look, but even the inside. And I tell you, you guys have done a remarkable job over the years. So thank you very much for making us look so good.
Outstanding.
That's for sure.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect.
Bring my phone.
Bob, get up there.
Yeah, we need good news. All right, item number 6, comments from the public. We have none, I don't guess.
No, we don't.
And item number 7, Ms. Dias, Ms. James, Ms. Peterson.
All right, good evening, Mr. Majors and Dr. Vincent and members of the board. We just want to give you a brief update on the Virtual Academy with this program expanding in August, pre-K all the way through 12th, and the continued growth. We want to keep you updated each month until we are positive that we have really good plans in place and serving all of our students and their families. Just as a reminder, we started this year off with a lot of students, almost 5,000. Some of the families that enrolled thinking it was going to be a lot of like distance learning where they're going to see their teachers' faces every day and do probably more simple activities just from home. And what a lot of families had discovered was that the curriculum is challenging. It's very rigorous and robust, which we do want, and it does require a lot of support from the parents. So after some students began to trickle back to the sites, we recognized the need to set a deadline for that transition. So October 30th was the deadline for first semester for students to opt back to in-person learning. And I'm going to talk about those numbers. So right now, pre-K through 5th, we have 1,239 students who are still enrolled in the Virtual Academy. Middle school, we have 864, and the high school, we have 1,022, which is approximately 3,125 students still enrolled in our Virtual Academy, which we are very pleased with.
So we've had about 2,000 go back.
Well, yeah, probably close to that from
Okay.
the start, from the initial start, yes.
Okay.
We had already probably had about 4,000 students left before we set the deadline,
Oh,
maybe a
okay.
little under that. And so once we set the deadline, we wanted to make sure we gave them 2 weeks. And it's interesting, we've had a few parents who went back to the school. Now with our COVID numbers rising, they want to go back to virtual, and so we were trying to avoid that ping pong. So we've assured people we'll have another deadline for second semester to talk that through with parents. So at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Peterson. She's going to talk a little bit about how we've addressed some of the concerns and how we're going to continue meeting those needs.
I'm going to have to pull my mask down just a little bit or my glasses will fog up. Just like with any curriculum, there is never a perfect curriculum. And Edmonton was the same. So we know that there were gaps and there were things that needed to be done for alignment to meet our standards. So both Ms. James and I led teams to identify all of those gaps. Ms. James's team, they worked very quickly, it was especially in history, if I'm correct, got it all realigned to make sure that it was meeting all of our standards. At the elementary level, what we have done with our instructional coaches, some of our virtual teachers, our literacy coaches, they literally went through all of the curriculum and identified every single standard that was not covered. So on Thursday, I've actually got another meeting set up to where we have identified those standards that weren't covered, what were the essentials that they have to go back, and then we are going to develop either projects or just supplemental material that will ensure. And I will tell you, I was pleasantly surprised that there were a lot fewer standards that were not covered than what I had anticipated. At the last board meeting, you approved our 4th and 5th grade social studies curriculum. Tonight on the consent agenda is that 3rd grade. That all has already been implemented and is meeting all Oklahoma standards for our virtual students. And I have heard nothing but positive about the social studies. And so I'm really excited about that. For our pre-K and kindergarten, we moved away from Edmonton because it really, after really diving in, we decided to go with Waterford, which was much more developmentally appropriate. And since we transitioned to Waterford, we have not gotten any complaints from our parents. So we will continue to move through this. I will tell you one other thing that our virtual teachers are doing. For our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade ELA, it is, as Ms. Dias said, extremely rigorous. And there is a lot of work, and they are literally going through every unit. They've printed them all off of Edmonton, and they're trying to streamline it to make sure that students aren't feeling overwhelmed by the amount of work. So it is a work in progress, but we are continuing to make great strides in ensuring that we meet all their academic needs.
Good evening. As you guys directed us at our last meeting, the feedback we took back was that you guys really said, we want our program to be the program that we compete, that we're the #1 virtual program. And we took that back. We met the next morning and we sat down and said, how do we make that happen? We feel like we're close to it, but how do we continue to kind of get over that threshold where we were at? So one of the things we have done is we have established surveys. We've sent surveys to our BAVA teachers, and we again sent another survey to our BAVA parents. As of tonight, before I came to the meeting, we are setting close to 400 responses, still not the number that I feel that gives us enough insight. So we're gonna send that round out again. What we asked for that was really about how was their experience, what was their feedback, what we could do better, where we failed, where our strengths were, so they could give us that feedback. The second thing we did also is establish a parent summit. So on November the 17th, we are hosting a virtual parent summit, and we will offer those summits at 4 times, like 2 to 2:50, 3 to 3:50, 4 to 4:50, and then a 6 o'clock to 6:50. What we have done is Ms. Peterson established a sign up where they could sign up and tell us when they're going to attend, at what time virtually, and also they could submit questions for us to address. We want to protect just everybody's time. And so what we want to do is they can't really speak back and forth, but they can chat with us. And so what we'll do is each time we'll look at all the questions that people signed up during that time and had questions they want us to respond to. And we'll address that. And we'll do that for each section that we host. And then at the end, we will pull those all back together for an FAQ that we'll send back out to all families at the Virtual Academy as a, just answer the questions and share with everybody. Our goal, of course, is to be able to use those to continue to listen and be extremely transparent that we understand our weaknesses, but we also want to improve on those weaknesses, but also celebrate the strengths that we've had and the success that we're seeing. Last but not least, I do want to update you. With elementary, it's a little bit easier to send our kiddos back and forth because there's not the scheduling, not back and forth, but it's semester. So for secondary, there's really looking at the guidance of what courses they need to be in, ensure that we have the right course that they're in and moving back and forth and have that opportunity to take care of that with their counselors. So we established the transition. If you want to go back to in-person learning at the end of first semester, you would let your roster teacher know by December the 11th. Then you would contact your school counselor at your home site to have a conversation about guidance, what courses I need to be in, what classes I should enroll in, and that they can make those changes so that it'll be more seamless. In addition, if a student is interested, because of the COVID numbers in return, enrolling in BAVA, they would notify Mr. Starr, make the arrangements, and visit with their counselors about the courses that we have, and we could place them in that correctly and make those schedule changes for them. So, but yeah, the deadline for that will be December the 11th. That gives our counselors the last week of December before Christmas break, 2 weeks coming in, and so they'll be fresh to start on that 19th of January. Yes, ma'am.
There was about 400 responses.
Yes,
Are
currently.
those teachers, parents, or both?
From parents only,
Oh,
close
okay.
to 400. From teachers, we have 35 responses, which is all teachers.
Okay.
We also made it, I don't think it's like 400 probably individual families, because I fixed the survey that they could put in for each student. Because we know that there may be a difference in what they perceive as what's worked or not worked at different levels. So we wanted to be very clear on your unhappy 6th, 8th maybe issue, but 9th and 12th, your kiddos succeeding and having success. So we told them they could, for each student they have enrolled in the academy, they could complete the survey for us.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it for the kids to go from one curriculum to another curriculum? Because they're not the same, right, obviously.
No,
I mean,
that
is
has been our
a
problem.
challenge?
Yeah, it is. It's just because the scope and sequence, and please jump in, but the scope and sequence is different. So what they're doing through Edmentum, what they're doing in Edgenuity may not match up to exactly what that teacher's doing in that course right now. So that's where our instructional coaches that Jennifer mentioned are really looking at the scope and sequence and ensuring that they're lined up a little bit more. So then when kids return back to second semester, we really look at, here are the few gaps, and we're being very intentional. Through middle school, we can close those gaps and address those gaps with IXL, which is our remediation and intervention program we purchased a year or so ago. They can assign to those students. So we're intervening for people who may have missed something and then enrich for students who are in-person learning. I know with Jennifer, they're doing Imagine Learning and
So we, the state purchased ExactPath, and so our elementary sites are utilizing ExactPath. But if they are a site, a title site that has Imagine Learning, there are different programs that do the same thing. So it basically finds out a student's deficiencies through a diagnostic test, and it puts them on a learning path so that they're filling all the holes that they're missing. So all of our elementary sites, they're either using Imagine Learning or ExactPath, either one. They're both excellent programs, and so and it's what's been great about the state purchasing ExactPath is it allows all of those non-title sites that we weren't able to use those title funds to get Imagine Learning. They have a product that's doing the exact same thing.
so to answer that, it is a challenge returning and going back and forth, but we have things in place to close those gaps and to address and intervene for them.
Okay, I mean, I wouldn't just meaning a challenge for the teachers, the kids also.
Yeah, and that's what I mean yes, for both.
Right.
And so that's why our programs allow to support our teachers, because they're that resource. So they're not having to, at the elementary, okay, virtual kiddos who return, come up here and we'll do that.
Right.
They can assign them those gaps within those programs that we have, like Jennifer mentioned, Imagine Learning, ExactPath, and then at middle school level, the iExcel program does that in all 4 cores. So if a kiddo missed, I don't know, a certain skill set or a standard that was covered prior to them returning, the teacher can go in and assign that. And at the middle school level, they have actually built that time in during the week. So through intervention time and 1 day a week, those kiddos are all working. So it can be enrichment for the in-person learning, but the intervention needed for those kids that might have missed something when they return.
And I just want to add, for our STAR benchmark assessment that we utilized it for both brick and mortar students and for our virtual students. So that way, if a student does come back, their teacher will have that data immediately, so they'll be able to see if there were any holes in math and reading, so they'll be able to help them.
Okay.
Maybe I missed this, but Mrs. Peterson, I think when you were saying it, and maybe I missed it, but I heard where you all had actually went through and looked at the, where we meet state kind of mandates or things like that. And I heard you mention it was at the elementary and I believe in the middle school, but did we do the same exercise in high school or?
Yes, for high school, it's Edgenuity, and it is aligned 95%. Where we've struggled a little bit is our AP, just the timing and getting that laid out because of the delay in our semester and start a little bit. But we are closing that gap. But Edgenuity is a lot easier to modify, to accommodate, and to ensure that they are more aligned with our courses that we have.
And we weren't hearing those concerns from high school parents nearly as much. It was
No.
Gotcha.
definitely
Okay. My other question is I know we've spent a significant amount of money on Edmonton,
Yes.
or Edmonton, however it's said. Is there any kind of, was there any kind of guarantee or anything in, it seems like we've been sold something that definitely was oversold to us for meeting our standards. And from my perspective, I'm just wondering, is there anything that we can go back to them and either get some kind of credit, or is there anything from a standards perspective that we can hold them accountable to reimburse or do something for us? Because I mean, $1 million is a lot of money on that curriculum that seems like we're now going in and plugging a ton of holes with other stuff we're buying.
Right.
So I have a little bit of concern. Is there anything we can go back to them on, or?
Well, Ms. James has done a great job working with those vendors, and it's not completely 100% their fault. I mean,
Okay,
I think
fair enough.
part of it is Oklahoma they were looking at Common Core standards. Oklahoma doesn't completely align with that.
Gotcha.
So part of it was, I think it was a miscommunication, but also that was the best product there was out there at the time. I bet you by next year at the same time, there'll be a lot more products available because everybody's catching up to it.
Okay.
They did give us a really good rate on the products that we did purchase, and they provided us training.
Yeah.
But we have been working with them to see, they've guaranteed us they're gonna continue to improve, send us some workbooks, so, Ms. James talks to them pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Well, and
one
that's
of the
good. I mean, I'm
things-
glad to hear that they're at least recognizing that, you know, we have a significant need.
They have.
They
yeah,
have.
for
And
su-
it's not just our district, there's other surrounding districts.
Oh, I'm
near
sure,
us.
I'm sure Oklahoma was.
So I think between all of us, they are hearing us
Yeah.
and trying
Because,
to
I mean,
amend.
all the other, there was a lot of other districts that I know bought this same product.
Correct.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
James.
And that was kind of what the warm fuzzy feeling, at least I walked away with, and then now I'm like,
Correct.
oh, man, was that a good move or was it not?
Yeah.
I mean, to be
And-
candid.
And honestly, I think part of it too was, our students, pre-K through 8th grade,
Mhm.
and their parents were expecting something else. We probably were too in some ways, but,
Yeah.
when you get out there and you look at everything that's available, that's pretty much what there is available. It's
Okay.
just really hard to do virtual learning. Nothing can replace a good classroom teacher.
I totally agree.
I mean, there's just something,
Totally, totally
even if it's on a
agree.
screen, there's just nothing as good as a teacher who's
Yeah.
certified and has gone to college and knows how to engage students and.
I 100% agree
And
with you on
so
that.
we are learning with it too, and we've learned that maybe we
Absolutely.
could do something even better on our own next year.
You think we'll ever get to the point where the in-person curriculum is the same as the virtual?
Yeah, I do.
Curriculum?
Actually,
That's
the
what we're
Brandon
striving
King's
for.
team- So Jennifer, do you wanna talk about that?
Sure, so, we're meeting for the third time on Thursday. During this summer, I put together along with Brandon Chitty, a group of pre-K all the way through 5th grade teachers, and we're creating modules around our very own curriculum. We just could not move fast enough
Sure.
to get it all done and get it done well. So I was able to use some funds to pay those teachers to do that. And so, and boy, now there's a couple of grade levels, they are like rocking it. So, I do believe by the end of this school year, we will have quite a bit of it done. And so once the funding comes available next school year, whatever is left, we'll finish up. So I know, I'm pretty sure beyond a shadow of a doubt, we'll probably have 3/4 of the year done this year, and it's all in Canvas. So, and then that way, and now what's, I guess if there's any silver lining about COVID, at the elementary level, it was really hard to get them to use Canvas because we're not one-to-one, why do I? Now, most all of our teachers are in Canvas, and so as these modules are rolling out, they'll be ready and prepared to use them. And so they will all be aligned to Oklahoma standards and all utilizing it'll be our math, our reading, and now we're doing the same thing with social studies now, 3rd through 5th.
So are we doing, just another follow-up of the question you said, are we taking some extra time to maybe help, to even really go above and beyond to help those teachers that may not, it may not be just something that's right in their.
Katie's team, Rather can attest to it, they've done amazing. I mean, they've gone above and beyond. When we closed Aspen Creek ECC last week for distance learning, I called him and he literally went over there with his team that afternoon, immediately got a plan in place, saw what gaps those teachers had and everything. He's got a training plan. Over the weekend, one of his team members made a spreadsheet with every teacher in the district's Canvas plan, what their needs are, and they're working through it, just piece by piece so not about it, it's really provide
Yeah.
support to those teachers and training.
Well, and one thing that's cool, especially with the teachers, sometimes it's hard to figure out when can I get the help because, if I've got kids I've got to get to after school, but whatever their schedules are, Mr. Chitty's team is set up one day a week where teachers can go on and get help. So they have live sessions.
And life help.
Live help with a teammate or a team member from the digital learning team. So it's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I know, I was trying to help my granddaughter and it was not a successful event, so.
And some of our very best teachers are not very techy.
Well, and I thought I was rather techie oriented a little bit, and I was like, holy heck. It was, I called in some recruit, so got it taken care of, but it wasn't by me, and so I feel for our parents. It's a tough gig.
I will also add, we have started asking for families to share videos of their kiddos learning at home. We've asked them to send us pictures of what's your classroom look like. I'm telling you, there are some awesome things happening, and we'll try to get those shared with you guys too and send them to you because it is phenomenal what some of these families are doing and what the kids are doing and just the enjoyment you see that they're learning. And so we've been sharing that, and those have made us feel better, because we're like, okay, we have
Yeah.
quality, we have some awesome learning going on through the programs that we have.
Well, and I'm glad to hear you guys are doing some learning, because, I mean, it's unprecedented, but to see us go from 5,000 to maybe, those 20% or 15 or 20% of those students that could have been in there, it makes me want to go, okay, well, what was the root cause? What are we, I want to make certain that we are, and it sounds like we're putting things in place, but also just not taking some things for granted, that we are definitely taking a step back, reevaluating, assessing, and moving forward each and every step, because it is an evolution. And it's
One thing, before our virtual students went back to in-person, they either had a sit-down with the principal or a phone conversation with the principal. And what we heard so much was, it was the social emotional. We heard, my child misses school so much.
Sure.
They need to be back in class. So we heard a lot of, they just really missed doing school.
But they
so-
didn't think we'd be so successful starting in person, and I think that was another thing too, so.
cool.
Is this the issues that you guys are having, is it pretty common across the United States?
Yes. But there,
And it's,
if you could write a research paper right now, it'd be on this.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all we read in all of our weekly journals, reports. Everyone's learning together, so.
And it's very common in northeastern Oklahoma, because there's several of us, like, I've been on the phone with Rose Pixley at Jinx, saying, okay, what are you doing? How have you dealt with this? What are you doing here? I know that Caleb, they are meeting with, several, it was Union, Sand Springs. So we're all brainstorming together, so we realize we're not in this boat alone. But at the end of the day, we want to be the best.
So
Right.
the news, if it makes you feel better, they call and ask us what we're doing.
And so, yeah, so the curriculum issue itself is something, and I have to admit, I was really angry about the whole issue with the vendor, because I thought, that's not right. They should have been providing this product that was, ready to go. And then when I was able to step back and really think about it, they created a product that was ready for Common Core. And, when Oklahoma decided to create their own standards, in theory, it sounds like a great idea, but in situations like this is when it becomes glaringly apparent that maybe it's not necessarily such a great idea, because it doesn't align to anything that you can purchase off the shelf. Then anytime you buy a textbook or an online learning material, it has to be custom made to your standards. And that's when it creates a problem. So, I'm really proud of our instructional team for jumping in, and they basically built the ship here, taking the framework of what Edmentum had, but then coming in and fixing it. So I think in conjunction with our surrounding districts, they're gonna have a really good product, something we can use, and it allows us to be very, very competitive with some other providers. And
when we met with them as our team, we met with them several times back in the spring when we were looking at it for 200 kids. And at that time, they were working on lining it for Oklahoma standards. Then COVID hit, and then they shut down working on that. So we were still thinking, you're still moving along, virtually like the rest of us, but they were not. They had slowed down, and we're like, so that also was a conversation we had with them, that, it's supposed to align, and they're like, we're working on it, it's just our COVID hit us, so.
right,
But
exactly.
So do we have, I know this is kind of a loaded question, but do we have anything looming out there that's, God, I keep hitting that. Anything that's looming out there that's kind of a gotcha that we've got to worry about, or anything on the forefront that's kind of a big worry of your guys' up front, or?
No.
I can't think of anything now.
No, but we weren't thinking about pandemic either.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, no kidding.
I feel like we've got a really great grasp on things. We've got really good administrative support at that site now, our teachers, my team's doing amazing, Brandon City's team's doing amazing. Feel confident that we'll do okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
We're here to support.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Item number 9 through 44, general consent. Need a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes. Item number 45, Dr. Vinson. No, we just went through 44.
Number 44 was the last of consent.
Okay, so this item basically, it's anytime we have a board seat that opens up, that's when we, open up an opportunity for us to allocate funds so that we can have a board election. And this is, Mr. Allen's board seat, and so we will, allocate $40,000, and this is the same amount that we allocate for any board seat.
Okay.
Any question? Motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette? Mr. Majors?
Yes. Item number 46, Dr. Benson.
This item is, anytime our Chamber of Commerce and our EDC appoints new board members, it has to be approved by our Board of Education, and the EDC has appointed 3 new board members, and they are Steve Tiger, Dr. Steve Tiger, who is the superintendent of Tulsa Tech, Ms. Jennifer Jezik, who is the president and owner of York Electric, and Ms. Kimberly Green, who is the president and owner of Diakonos Group. And those are the 3 names that have been recommended by the EDC, and they are presented to the board for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes. And item 47, Dr. Vinson again.
Okay. Item 47 is each year the Tulsa Regional Chamber brings together a large group of folks in the area to approve or create a legislative summit. And what they do is they bring forth 15 state and 15 federal priorities that guide the chamber advocacy for the legislative group. And these are the education priorities for 2021. And a couple that I would like to highlight for you this evening are, one is, again, they're wanting to address the teacher shortage. One of the ones that they're highlighting is incentivizing aspiring educators by providing full tuition waivers for education majors. I thought that was a good highlight. And then local funding of education. This is one that they brought forth last year. And what it does is allows local communities to raise funds, but it not to be a chargeable against our funding. So our state aid formula right now, if we were to raise local funding, then that would be a chargeable. So our state aid would be reduced by that amount. This is a push to be able to raise local funding, but it not be taken away from our state funding. Another thing that I'd like to point out is in the federal funding, there's a couple of items. One of them is in the Pell Grant, but that they're recommending to be able to use Pell Grants toward concurrent enrollment. I have mixed feelings about that because Pell Grant currently, there is only a certain amount for each student. So by allowing that to be used for concurrent enrollment, it could cause a student to run out of money before they finish their college degree. And then the second one is they are recommending to be able to expand the ability to use apprenticeships. And this would be a huge advantage to our project pathways because with this funding would follow. So it could possibly allow us to apply for federal funding. That would allow, then we could funnel that federal funding through our school district and then pay some of our students when they are then being awarded their apprenticeships, so that would be a definite benefit. So those are some of the highlights of the One Voice agenda and how it applies to education. So any questions on the One Voice agenda?
Any questions?
Appreciate you highlighting those. I know reading
Yeah.
through that, it was like, man, there's so much there. I was like, okay, what am I supposed to be really
Well, that's what
grasping
we
on that?
talked about the other day. I'm like, okay, what is it?
Yeah, so I appreciate you doing that, because I mean, that definitely gives me a much more focused attention on that, and so I make the motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes. Item number 48, Ms. Kearns.
Good evening. Last month, we brought these same policies to you for the first read to give you the opportunity to discuss and ask any questions. And this month, we bring the exact same policies. There's been no new ones added. So we do ask that you formally approve the revisions and/or creations of policies 2000, 3155, 5020, 5095, 5295, 5300, 5310, 5350, 5400, 6110, and 6190.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 49, Mr. Delamayo.
Good evening. I'm here to seek your approval for $80,800 for the visual display boards at STEM. Visual display boards are just a fancy way of saying marker and tack boards. So it's all of the marker and tack boards at STEM. We're doing STEM's kind of out there, so we're doing some large collaboration marker boards that take up entire walls. So it's more than we would typically spend for something like this, but with this project, it's pretty right on.
So you had two bids,
Correct.
and this one's quite a bit cheaper than the other one.
Correct.
So we're confident it's good?
Yes, we did we double checked and triple checked, and
Okay.
And they said they're willing to do it for that amount. It's
I mean-
also Builder Supply is a company we use for a lot of different things. It's a company that we've used in the past and had very good luck with them. So
Good to know. All right. Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes. Item number 50, Ms. Enoff.
Good evening. Monthly financial reports through the end of October. Not a lot of update as far as our projection for midterm allocation cuts. We're still a couple months out from that figure. But I will just give the board a brief update on our ad valorem situation with Tulsa County and Wagner County. I reported to the board a couple months ago the situations with the instability of funding with both those counties. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of movement in what we're seeing in Wagner County with the protest going on with the large utility company at this moment. It's just moving very slowly through the court system, and we're just not really seeing any movement. Ms. Hodges, the assessor in Wagner County, has promised to keep us updated on any progress that she sees, but it's very slow at the moment. As far as our situation in Tulsa County, several of the CFOs met with Assessor Wright the last week of October to kind of give us an update on what he's seeing with the commercial property valuations. He is seeing a little bit of a better scenario than what was initially projected to us, that 3 to 8% overall decrease in our valuation because of commercial property. The projection now is maybe, the initial projection was 6 to 8%. The projection now is more in the 3 to 8%. The good news for us is that residential property continues to be very strong. in Tulsa County because of the low interest rates right now, and people just purchasing homes very quickly and taking advantage of that low rate. So that continues to be a positive for us. So he's hoping that some of that will offset that dramatic loss that he's projecting for some of the commercial property. So he is still projecting to see a decline, a decrease, but hopefully not to the magnitude of what was initially projected. We're also very hopeful that our properties in Wagner County continue to remain strong. We have a different makeup of properties in Wagner County as we do in Tulsa. So according to Assessor Hodges, our manufacturing and that type of commercial property continues to be strong in Wagner. So we're cautiously optimistic that the decline won't be as severe and as drastic as what was initially projected. But clearly we're watching that very closely because that has a lot of implications on our bottom line budget and our bonding capacity. So I'll continue to update the board as we learn more information. Just going through general fund revenue very quickly, you can see state aid has started to show a decline from where we were last year from the initial cut that we received in August. Our state sources of revenue, the outlier there is just receiving some funds up front instead of prorated payments through the duration of the year. And in federal sources, you'll start to see some of that CARES Act money be received by the district. Our budget has been approved now, and we're claiming those funds. And just as a reminder to the board, we received two different types of CARES Act funds. One based on our free and reduced population of about 1.6 million, and the other was a competitive grant that was awarded to the district of $500,000. So you will see those revenues start to come in general fund. Building fund, again, ad valorem is our main source of revenue. The difference last year was that insurance premium that we received for the storm damage. And child nutrition, clearly they have been affected tremendously with the pandemic, and just operations have changed dramatically for them with everything. Their federal sources of revenue have started to pick up with claims starting in September and also coming in very strong in October. But we are continuing to watch them and are prepared to supplement with general fund if needed. But at this point, we're projecting them to be able to get through the semester as they have planned. Expenditures, the positive point is our salaries and benefits have remained relatively stable. The outlier you can see in that supply area, the amount that the district had to spend to get school started on PPE, on just everything that the pandemic required us to be able to start school safely for our kids and our staff. And that's part of that CARES Act funds. That's part of what that's being directed towards. But again, that is one-time funding. Building fund, some of the COVID expenses were coded to our building fund as well. And child nutrition, they have been able to be very judicious with ordering food and supplies, and they're making sure that every dollar that is expended is double and triple checked with their revenue. And our ending fund balance, just as a reminder for last year, was up, and we are holding on to that very closely to get us through not only this year, but we are looking forward to another difficult year in 2022, just with a lot of uncertainty about where state revenue will be and where we will be as a country, as we try and emerge from the pandemic. May I answer any questions?
Just one question I have is kind of financially related. Are we still doing okay with, PPE, purchasing PPE equipment for teachers, students, things like that? Are we still sitting pretty good on those kind of items to make certain that in-person is taken care of?
I believe we are.
Sorry, it was kind of a curveball, but just a thought that come up, so.
Yes,
We were running out, but just recently we got some more. I know that. We had a big donation, didn't we?
And the state did give us another allocation of masks.
Okay.
And we have plenty of gloves and gowns. The highest that we are on is the hand sanitizer, but I know school sites have become resourceful and are asking parents for donations and those kinds of things. But
Well, I'd seen some things like that and was kind of curious. And plus, this is going on longer than, a lot of us kind of anticipated and
Right.
thought. So I just want to be sure that, we're,
the sauna water has been a huge, huge plus, and that's really what has solved a lot of our issues with the
cool.
I know we were going through masks really, really fast there for a while. And then we did get another allocation of them, but I can see us, shortly after we get back from winter break, probably needing some more. Hopefully we'll get another allocation from the state, but if not, we'll need more.
Masks are now becoming like readers. Like I have them laying all over the place. It's like,
Exactly.
Where the hell is these things?
Exactly.
There they are.
Exactly.
So.
I have one question, Natalie. If we get cut from Tulsa County, when will we know that?
Well, they revalue all properties as of January 1st. But traditionally, the timeline for districts receiving our new valuation isn't until August. And so that will be a conversation definitely with the assessor's office of if they in fact are seeing these trending declines, school districts need to know that immediately because that changes the entire face of our budget process going into school year 2022. And we can't wait until August to know that information. The ship's already sailed at that point. We have staffing plans in place, and we've gone through the negotiation process. So we need to know that much, much earlier than August.
And the assessor kind of is aware of that, or
I
will
bel-
be made aware of
He
that?
will probably be made aware. We're continuing conversation with him. I know he's going to continue to come to our area superintendent and administrators meeting next semester after kind of that January 1st magical date comes and goes, and to give his office some time to process, all of that data and hopefully have some clearer direction.
Well, if you need support from the board to emails or calls, let us know.
Thank
We
you.
can call the mayor. Just kidding.
I've got some questions. So with your projections and stuff, we're going to struggle again next year. Are we having any issues with backorder supplies or issues that we're going to need for next year, like Chromebooks, curriculums, anything that we see possibly having issues with?
I know with that incentive grant, the competitive grant that we received, a large portion of that grant was designated for Chromebooks, and those have been backordered for several months. I'm not sure if they have been received at this point, but I know there was a pretty significant time delay on getting those in.
Yeah, the earliest, what I can tell you is that we were originally told when they were going to be delayed, we were originally told October as the time frame, and then we were told November, December, then we were told January. I mean, they keep pushing it. The vendor has a very similar model of Chromebook. There's a price differential. It's actually more expensive, but they're actually going to give it to us for the cost that we paid, and we expect to have those Chromebooks. They're saying sometime in November, so that would be fantastic. To wait until second semester, it just continues. But I mean, it's problems we're seeing all over the place. Like you can order one model of computer, and you can get it, in a week. And you can order a different model with different specs, and
And that just bottlenecks the entire process as far as getting the items received, getting the money claimed, and getting that revenue into the district. Our goal with all of the CARES Act funds is to get the money spent immediately so we can get that revenue into the district. They have given us 2 years to spend those funds, but we need the funds now, and waiting just kind of prolongs the problem that we're having with cash flow. And so we definitely don't want to sit on those funds and send the message to the federal government that schools don't need the funds, because we do. And quite frankly, we need another stimulus package to keep going into 2022. And I think our legislators need to be very vocal on that front for us, because this was a one-time deal, and yes, it helped, but a lot of those funds were directed towards pandemic expenses and not the ongoing operations of the district, which is what we have to support with our fixed costs, staffing, payroll, curriculum, everything else. Just to remind the board, our operating budget that was approved in September of $138 million, roughly 90% of that is in staffing.
9% is what?
In staffing.
Right.
Payroll and benefits. And so 10% is a very slim operating budget for everything else, for all the utilities, for insurance, for gas for the buses, for supplies. It's pretty razor thin when you actually start breaking it down.
Explain to me the order of Chromebooks that we have, because that's the subject we're discussing. What is that for? What are those, if they come in December, what are those for?
So I can't speak exactly to as part of the CARES grant, there are 900 Chromebooks.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly, Carla, do you know exactly where Gene is allocated?
I do.
Here.
Those Chromebooks they're twofold. So when we went on distance learning, our virtual, at the very beginning of the year, we wanted to ensure if students that went to virtual had a Chromebook. So we didn't have a bank of Chromebooks at the time, so elementary sites gave up some of their Chromebooks for those students. So those Chromebooks will, number one, replace Chromebooks that were passed out to virtual students. But we also have about 5 sites that have far fewer Chromebooks, or five elementary sites that have fewer Chromebooks than a lot of the other elementaries do. So those Chromebooks will be used to help ensure that we have an equitable number of Chromebooks at all of our elementaries.
Okay. So it's essentially all these Chromebooks are to handle the COVID crisis. But we're going to need to replace Chromebooks and equipment and technology that we currently have next year in 2022 and et cetera. So if they're on back order now, we need to be preparing for that, funding wise and need wise.
And the traditional refresh of Chromebooks in a normal year when we're not in a pandemic comes out of our bond allocation. The instructional bond allocation carries a significant balance to fund those for a grade level every year. The past 2 years, just to kind of get us back on cycle, we've had to purchase 2 grade levels at a time, but going forward, a single grade level should be able to be supported through that annual bond allocation that we have in the spring.
That's in a perfect world, but
That's in a perfect world.
which we no longer live in. So.
And that's assuming that our bonding capacity isn't changed with what's going on with our value.
So if something doesn't change, we're going to have to change something to be able to just provide what is actually needed in a normal situation.
And that's also assuming regular growth. If we have larger than normal growth, then we won't be able to keep up that pace.
Okay.
So,
Anything else? Item number 51.
Okay, the next item is to ask the board to approve adding Broken Arrow Public Schools to a letter to our state officials petitioning withholding any midterm adjustment to EPIC charter schools. in light of the recent audit released by our state auditor, Ms. Cindy Bird, there's just a lot of unknowns right now as information continues to come to light with the findings of that audit. And so several of the area school districts and in Oklahoma City have kind of come together to write a unified letter to our state officials, our Attorney General, the Governor, State Department of Education, Superintendent Hoffmeister, to temporarily stay those midterm funding dollars to EPIC. And so this would formalize the board's decision to add Broken Arrow to that list of schools. This isn't formally joining a lawsuit or obligating the district to anything. It would just simply be for Broken Arrow to be on that list with some of our other districts.
Any questions on that?
Did you say has our attorney looked at that letter?
Yes, he was sent the letter, and it was under his advice that the board take formal action to join.
And is there a possibility for us to take more of an aggressive approach to get what's entitled to us in our district?
That's possible. At this point, we were just trying this approach first.
Try the tough language first.
But the reality is that they've been proven to have broken the law, and that's what the idea of this whole issue is, to get the money that should be directed towards us.
The concern is with their booming enrollment. I think they're over 61,000 at this point. Their portion of the midterm adjustment would be quite significant, and what that would do is basically shift dollars through the funding formula to EPIC in light of all of the audit findings. We just don't feel good about that.
That's great. Make a motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes. Item number 52, Ms. Ena.
My last item is to ask the board to modify the building fund operating budget of an increase of $510,000. When we brought the building fund budget to you in September, we failed to realize that we did have a lot of one-time revenue adjustments in there from last year, from the insurance and the storm damage and those type things. And so we underestimated the amount of revenue that would be coming into that fund this year. And so we need to adjust that in order to make some of our fixed cost payments.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Ena. New business, we have none, I don't believe. And item number 54, executive session. Need a motion.
All right, make a motion, we move to executive session?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes. See you all later.